It's been a few days since the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I was fortunate enough to spend over 100 hours playing the game before launch. Since I had early access, there was no guidance, so I had to figure out a lot of things the hard way. In this video, I want to share 12 things I wish I had known when I first started playing. Hopefully this video will make your playthrough a lot smoother. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. With that said, let's get right into it. Let's start with Mon. If you're not familiar, Mon is the in-game currency, and I did not realize just how important it was until I was about 30 hours in. So the first tip is to always make sure you have enough Mon, because running low in this game can make your playthrough frustrating as hell. You'll end up spending Mon more than you might expect. Want to upgrade the buildings in your hideout? That costs Mon. Need to refill your scouts? That costs Mon. Upgrading your allies? Yep, Mon again. Even unlocking KAKUREGAS requires Mon. So in summary, a lot of things you do in this game just require it. The strange part is that it doesn't feel like you naturally earn a lot by just playing the game, so you need to go out of your way to farm it. I recommend clearing out enemies in castles and forts, as well as completing contracts, as both are great ways to earn Mon. I'll go over contracts shortly in the video. You can also come across a certain enemy in this game called Ronin, who are found roaming throughout the open world. And these types of enemies, when killed, can drop a decent amount of Mon as well. So yeah, once you get around 20 plus hours in, you'll see just how much you will rely on this currency. Trust me on that. The next thing to keep in mind while playing is to not stress over which skills to unlock, and this goes for whatever weapon you decide to main, whether it's now a Tanto, Katana or Yasuke's Kanabo, or just whatever it is. Now the reason is very simple. You will naturally accumulate a ton of skill points, or mastery points as they're called in this game, and by the way, that is no exaggeration. You can clear out a single castle, and then spend about 15 minutes fighting enemies, and you'll level up very quickly, earning plenty of skill points in the process. In fact, if you follow this approach, you can easily end up with around 10 to 15 skill points with minimal effort. You also get a ton of skill points by just doing the main story, doing side quests, doing contracts, side targets and whatnot. Plus, one of the great things about Assassin's Creed Shadows is that you can reset your skill points at any time without any cost, which honestly I do think that's a bit too easy. I would have preferred if the game at least required us to spend Mon to do it. So yeah, don't worry too much about what skills to unlock early on. By the time you're around 40 to 50 hours in, you will have more than enough skill points, to the point where you'll just be upgrading skills for the sake of it, and that is exactly what I ended up doing. Every time I got skill points, I just upgraded the first thing I saw, because I knew I'd get a lot more very soon. I wish I knew this sooner, because only quite late into the game did I realize skill points are not that hard to get. This one might be a bit hit or miss for some people, but honestly, if I were you, don't even bother using or upgrading Yasuke's TEPPO rifle. It's easily the most pointless and for the most part, frustrating weapon in the game. For starters, the damage output is surprisingly low, which is pretty odd considering it's a gun. The reload speed is painfully slow, and even after upgrading it, it's just not worth using. And if you're trying to play stealthily, well, it goes without saying that this thing isn't exactly subtle. In fact, this is Assassin's Creed. A big loud firearm like this just feels impractical. Instead, I would highly recommend focusing on Yasuke's bow. It has a faster draw speed, deals the same if not more damage, and most importantly, it's silent. Thinking about it, I guess they had to include the TEPPO rifle to fit the whole samurai theme of Yasuke's character, but in terms of gameplay, it's just not worth your time. And I realized this after I dumped a bunch of skill points into the weapon trying to see if it's worth it, when in reality it's not. Contracts are something that at first I thought would not be a big deal, but they are actually super useful and underrated, mainly because of the rewards that they offer. As you progress throughout the game, you will quickly realize that upgrading your hideout requires a ton of materials and resources. Now sure, you can raid castles to scavenge for them, or loot roadside camps, but one of the easiest, and I have a feeling will be a very overlooked way to gather materials, is through contracts. These missions are incredibly simple. Most of the time you just need to assassinate a random target or loot a specific chest, and the best part is the rewards make it absolutely worth it. In fact, since you will likely be clearing out roadside camps and groups of enemies anyway, you might as well take on contracts for some extra incentive. Oh yeah, and it also goes back to the first thing in the video. You can get quite a fair bit of Mon from these contracts. There are also other objectives with these contracts that are called opportunities, and these are nice little ways to find other things in the world, such as a random legendary chest, a potential quest item, a certain vendor and whatnot. My feedback to Ubisoft is to add more to the contracts, because as of right now, they are just way too generic. One of the most overpowered abilities in this game, if not the most overpowered, is called Hidden Hand. Now this is a Tanto skill that lets you sheathe your Tanto and extend the hidden blade instead, instantly assassinating an enemy for free. Once fully upgraded, this ability becomes borderline broken. It cannot be parried or blocked, meaning you can one-shot almost any enemy in the game. Now sure, it does not work on quest-related targets such as the one with names above their health bars, but against enemies such as guardians, elite enemies, brutes, you name it, it will literally one-shot them with ease. And the cooldown is surprisingly quite low. Honestly, thinking about it now, this ability is just a free kill with no downside. If you're ever in a tough spot or about to die, just activate the Hidden Hand ability and you're instantly back in control of the fight. So yeah, just make sure you unlock the Hidden Hand skill as soon as possible, especially if you are somebody that will use the Tanto with Nawe. The next tip is to always sell your old purple and blue rarity gear as soon as you find something better. The looting system in this game, in my opinion, at least for non-legendary gear, is pretty messy. You will naturally obtain a ton, and I mean a ton, of purple and blue items just by killing people, looting chests and completing side quests. If you do not keep on top of it, your inventory will very quickly become cluttered with unnecessary gear. Plus, let's be honest, the sell items feature in this game is not exactly great. You cannot sell multiple items at once, which I think is stupid, meaning you will have to go through them one by one, which is a pain in the ass because it plays a slow animation after you sell one item. That's why I recommend selling gear immediately after finding an upgrade. However, if there is a purple item you like the stats of, then sure, keep it. You can upgrade it later on. But selling your old gear as soon as possible will keep your inventory clean and save you from dealing with a huge mess later on. I wish I had done this earlier because my inventory right now is a disaster. Something I really wish I had known earlier is to upgrade your hideout as soon as possible, instead of leaving it as a late game thing. The benefits of building and upgrading certain buildings is very big. For starters, I highly recommend constructing all 6 main buildings right away. These are essential for things like upgrading your gear beyond certain levels and improving the scout system. Getting these set up early makes a massive difference. Then there are the secondary buildings, which might not seem as important at first, but actually provide major advantages. For example, one building named Terra straight up increases your XP gain by 10%, which is quite literally a game changer in a massive open world RPG like this. I made the mistake of ignoring the hideout system until I was around 30 hours in, only to realize I could have progressed way faster if I had upgraded it earlier. So yeah, don't make the same mistake. Invest in your hideout as soon as possible. Throughout the world of Assassin's Creed Shadows, there are shrines, which most of us are probably familiar with by now. Praying at these grants a mastery point. However, there are also smaller unmarked shrines scattered throughout the world that are easy to miss but surprisingly useful. These shrines are not marked on your map, so they can be hard to spot, but you'll often find them alongside roadsides or pathways. Praying at them grants you a temporary buff, such as increased crit damage, higher affliction buildup, or even a max health boost. If you're about to take on a combat focused quest, or you are going to take on a castle, then 100% stop by one of these shrines first. The buffs can make a big difference. Unfortunately, you can only have one active at a time, so these buffs do not stack, but they are still incredibly underrated. I did not start using them until late in my playthrough, but I do highly recommend making them a habit early on. This is not necessarily something I wish I knew before playing, because I did know, but it's still very important enough to include in this type of video. The combat in Assassin's Creed Shadows is entirely reliant on parrying. Without parrying, fights become a tedious game of dodging instead of actual combat. Instead, whenever an enemy attacks, watch for the blue icon. This indicates a parryable attack. If you time it right, you will stun the enemy, making them temporarily vulnerable and allowing you to deal extra damage. I'm mentioning this because the combat in Shadows is completely different from past Assassin's Creed games, and it is way more unforgiving. So yeah, if you are used to the older mechanics, which we all are, it could take some adjustment. So yeah, bottom line, parrying is key. Keep that in mind for every fight you get into. To me, the most fun part of Assassin's Creed Shadows is easily the side targets to track down and kill, and I highly recommend not skipping them as they provide some of the best loot in the game. Unlike previous Assassin's Creed RPG games where similar systems felt repetitive, such as Odyssey's Cult of Cosmos, Shadows makes target hunting feel more organic. Instead of simply following a menu or markers, you uncover these groups naturally through exploration, side quests, or even the main story. There are many organizations operating in the Shadows, from pirates to underground cults, each with its own unique questline, and they are fully fleshed out characters with motives, backstories, and distinct personalities, making them feel like genuine threats instead of filler content. These side targets add a lot of depth to the world, making exploration feel meaningful, instead of just another checklist of things to do. So yeah, 100% just make sure when you play through Shadows, don't neglect the side targets. During my 100+ hour playthrough, I often ignored alarm bells in enemy castles and forts because I never thought I would get caught. Eventually, I learned that taking them out immediately upon entering a stronghold is important. The reason is straightforward. When an enemy activates an alarm bell, it will not only summon a new type of enemy to the castle or fort, who are called guardians, which are these massive 7-foot tall enemies with heavy attacks and enormous health, but it also alerts the entire region, marking your character as wanted, whether you're playing as either Nawe or Yasuke. And once you are marked as wanted, you're forced to deal with the repercussions. The only ways to clear the wanted level are to either wait for the current season to end, which can feel like an eternity, or spend 2 scouts to clear your name in that region. Neither option is ideal. Alarm bells might not seem like a big deal at first, but once one goes off, you'll immediately regret not dealing with it beforehand. And not gonna lie, I kind of reloaded my save file a few times when this happened. So yeah, prioritizing alarm bells is a game changer. Trust me, you don't want to deal with an entire castle swarming with guardians. The last thing I strongly recommend keeping in mind while playing Assassin's Creed Shadows is to always make use of KAKUREGAS. If you're unfamiliar, KAKUREGAS act as mini safe houses scattered throughout the world, and they are incredibly useful for several reasons. First, they are very cheap to unlock, costing only 800 mon, making them a no-brainer. Second, they serve as additional fast travel points. So if you haven't synced a viewpoint but there's a KAKUREGA nearby, you can literally just open your map and buy that KAKUREGA and that's it. You can use that instead. And third, they offer several essential features. You can refill ammo and supplies, manage allies, refill scouts, access your storage chest, and most underratedly, if that's a word, accept contracts, which I previously mentioned as one of the best ways to earn materials and resources. These safe houses are incredibly convenient and can make your playthrough much smoother. So yeah, be sure to unlock them whenever you get the chance. They're easily one of the most useful mechanics in the game, and once you start utilizing them quite often, you'll wonder how you manage without them. And there we have it. That is 12 things that I wish I had known before playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now hopefully my goal was at least one of these tips will help you out, because if not, well, I failed miserably. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Assassin's Creed Shadows. Are you enjoying the game, or do you have mixed feelings? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.